an eye on the northern front, because it can upset the rhythm of the whole war. Even without the biggest headline, pressure from the border forces leaders to divide attention and hedge their next move. That matters because conflicts become more dangerous when nobody is operating on just one timeline. A live northern edge means every response has to be planned with a second interruption in mind. So the bulletin here is simple: the North does not need to dominate the news to dominate the timing. And in war, timing is often half the battle.
O amor pode mudar o mundo, mas o dinheiro muda a vida mais rápido. Seja golden hotel, a lua é nossa salvação. Cenas do próximo capítulo, como salva vidas é outra história. Seja golden hotel, a lua é nossa. Atravessa o país, o continente, latitude, longitude menor que siga Golden Hotel por diversão, pelo doce. É torcer pro meu salário conseguir acompanhar.
Tuning in. Turn it up. One place for all that stuff. Hey! RadioTube News Radio. Every headline, every show, from your street to world events. Truth and talk that make you think. RadioTube News Radio. Stay in the know, stay in the flow. Anytime you're good to go. RadioTube News Radio. Early buzz, late night spin. Local voices, global spin. Traffic, weather, who did what? Hear it first, connect the dots. RadioTube News Radio. Every headline, every show, from your street to world events. Truth and talk that make you think. RadioTube News Radio. Stay in the know, stay in the flow. Anytime you're good to go. RadioTube News Radio. Scrolling through the chaos, same headline, different day. Everybody's selling outrage like a discount holiday. Talking heads in tiny boxes, point and shout, then cut to ads. I just want a little truth here, not a glossy paper mask. Is anyone still honest on the screen? Or just chasing every click in every screen? Turn up the RadioTube News.
Breaking under me.
The map of danger is getting longer, and that changes more than the map. It changes the hidden math of the war. When strikes begin reaching deeper support infrastructure, the immediate headline is usually about fire, smoke, or the symbolic shock of distance. But the longer story is slower and more important. Every rear area site that becomes vulnerable stops functioning as quiet background and starts demanding guards, repairs, dispersal plans, backups, and rerouting. That matters because militaries do not run only on courage or firepower. They run on boring reliability. Fuel has to arrive. Runways have to reopen. Spare parts have to move. Crews have to rotate. Communications have to survive interruption. Once long-range pressure starts touching those routines, the war begins draining efficiency, not just absorbing losses. This is why strategic depth can become deceptive. On paper, a base or logistics hub may still be far from the main battlefield. In practice, if it must now operate under recurring threat, then distance is no longer a shield. It is simply more territory that has to be defended and kept functional. There is also a political layer. Governments like to reassure their public that the rear remains stable even when the front is dangerous. Long-range escalation weakens that promise by shrinking the category of places that feel unquestionably safe. The result is not only physical vulnerability, but administrative overload. And overload matters. A system under repeated long-range pressure becomes more managerial, more cautious, and more fragile in tempo. It spends more time restoring yesterday's capacity and less time building tomorrow's initiative. So the question in this phase is not only who can strike farther. It is who can keep the machinery of war looking ordinary while it is being forced to live abnormally. Because once the rear has to fight to remain a rear, the conflict is no longer expanding only in space. It is expanding in workload.
Maps glow, crimson borders, arrows, lines. One post whispers, done before it climbs. RadioTube news trading in my veins. Every little update tilts the frame. Shots and conflicts tangled on a screen, trying to buy calm in a wartime dream. RadioTube news can't look away. Price tags tied to a leader say. A world on fire and a thumbnail view. I'm chasing green in a sea so blue. Thumbprint logging, sleep still in my eyes. New flash briefing, peace talk, steep decline. Rumors flooding, comments like a storm. One sharp sentence breaks the old norm. Is it fear? Is it fate? Am I late? Am I bait? Every tick, every take, how much risk can I take? RadioTube news trading in my veins. Every little update tilts the frame. Charts and conflicts tangled on a screen, trying to buy calm in a wartime dream. RadioTube news can't look away.
A strike on a capital does more than rattle nerves. It clutters the machinery of government. And that is why Tehran matters in a very specific way. When disruption hits a capital, the problem is not only what was damaged. The problem is that everything important is concentrated there at once: command, communications, media attention, bureaucracy, symbolism, and the expectation of control. That creates a kind of political congestion. Security services need room to respond. Officials need room to coordinate. The public wants answers quickly. The leadership wants to project calm. And all of that has to happen in the same city, under the same pressure, often in the same hour. This is the mechanism worth noticing. Repeated strikes on Tehran do not just test defenses. They test whether the center can keep functioning as a center while absorbing interruption. That is a much harder task than simply surviving an attack. There is also a credibility cost. In a capital, delays, confusion, conflicting signals, or visible disruption carry more weight than they would on the periphery, because people assume the center should be the place where the system looks most organized. So Tehran becomes more than a battlefield location. It becomes the place where the state must prove that pressure has not turned authority into traffic. And when the capital starts fighting for operational clarity, the war is no longer only about what can be hit. It is about whether power can still move cleanly through its own center.
Screensaver glow on my face, blank page, heart in a race, coffee gone cold by the sink, cursor taps time, I overthink, turn my thoughts into electric sketches, little sparks in the Czasem ludzie to gnoje, dbają tylko o swoje, nie pomogą nikomu, a trzeba pomoc. Zabijają wzrokiem pełnym zawiści, uważają, że są czyści, egoiści. Czasem ludzie to gnoje, dbają tylko o swoje, chorego dobiją, aby lepiej im było. Zgwałcą, zniszczą, sponiewierają wszystkich, nawet swoich bliskich. Egoiści, 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 egoiści.
Hormuz does not have to be formally closed to start acting like a problem. The crucial shift comes when the route stays open on paper, but feels less usable in practice. That is when insurers hesitate, operators rethink timing, and buyers start pricing in friction instead of waiting for a dramatic headline. In other words, access may still be legal while confidence is already shrinking. So the bulletin is this: in Hormuz, uncertainty can clog the route before any blockade does. And once confidence narrows, the shock travels far beyond the water.
egoiści, 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 egoiści. To są ludzie. Ludzie! Blank screen, bright mind, coffee rings, deadline, little sparks on the edge of sleep, new words in a single key. Turn it up, my neon ideas, all these colors in my head run free. Drawing futures on the ceiling, I can see it, I can feel it, it's designing me. Turn it up, my neon ideas, every line is just a doorway key. When I close my eyes, I'm building whole new worlds out of pure energy. Glitch thought, clean line, wrong turn, still fine. Every error is a secret. Turn it up, my neon ideas, all these colors in my head run free. Drawing futures on the ceiling, I can see it, I can feel it, it's designing me. Turn it up, my neon ideas, every line is just a door out of pure energy.
Some attacks change the military picture. Others change the mental map. And strikes near highly sensitive sites belong to the second category as well. When a missile lands near a location associated with national research, strategic prestige, or deeper security architecture,
Fica rico de novo, por favor. Sorriso brilhante aos montes, rei da montanha, dentro de sonho, faça dançar, corra pra pescaria. O amor pode mudar o mundo, mas o dinheiro muda a vida mais rápido. Seja golden otter, a lua é nossa salvação. Cenas do próximo capítulo, como salva vidas é outra história. Seja golden otter, a lua é nossa. Atravessa o país, o continente, latitude, longitude menor que um. Siga Golden Otter por diversão, pelo doce. É torcer pro meu salário conseguir acompanhar. glass, red text yelling, market move fast. Maps glow, crimson borders, arrows, lines. One post whispers, done before it climbs. RadioTube news trading in my veins. Every little update tilts the frame. Charts and conflicts tangled on a screen, trying to buy calm in a wartime dream. RadioTube news can't look away. Price tags tied to a leader say, world on fire and a thumbnail view. I'm chasing green in a sea so blue. And comments like a storm. One sharp sentence breaks the old norm. Is it fear? Is it fate? Am I late? Am I bait? Every tick, every take, how much risk can I take? RadioTube news trading in my veins.
A war changes when one strike stops being counted simply as another incident and starts being remembered as a benchmark.
In a wartime
That is what the civilian impact story can do after a highest casualty attack. Once a place like Arad becomes associated with the worst toll so far, the conflict gains a new reference point. Every later alert, every government statement, and every public reaction begins to pass through that memory. That matters because societies do not process danger only through statistics. They process it through emotional landmarks. A benchmark attack becomes the answer to an invisible question people keep asking: how bad can this get? This changes politics too. Leaders now speak under the shadow of that remembered event. Reassurance becomes harder, restraint becomes harder, and the demand for visible protection becomes stronger, because the public is no longer imagining a theoretical worst case. It has a name for it. There is also immediate consequence. Once one attack becomes the standard of severity, future coverage gets framed against it. Was this worse than Arad, smaller than Arad, closer than Arad, more symbolic than Arad? That keeps the original shock alive for longer than the news cycle itself. So the deeper point is this: a high-casualty civilian strike does not only wound people and places. It rewrites the scale by which the rest of the war is judged. And when tragedy becomes a benchmark, it stops living only in the past. It starts shaping every fear that comes after it.
por la escalera, las flores lloran. Cuando su sombra pasa por ellas, cuando su reflejo corre en las olas. No use my love, no, no. Las mareas corren hacia ella. Las sombras la buscan incluso en la noche más oscura. Un amor reluciente de oro, llevándome desde lo viejo hacia el infinito y más allá. Desvanecerse, dejarlo ir, quedarme en casa, nada más que amor. Aguanta un poco más conmigo, déjame bailar contigo, romperme contigo, solo llévame. Aguanta un poco más conmigo, déjame bailar contigo, romperme contigo, solo llévame, amén. Underground or airplane, doesn't matter in the end. I know it has to be this way, you're leaving me again. So write my little love song and sing it to the wind. You're out there.
Another warning, another strike, another recovery cycle. That pattern matters because danger is starting to risk becoming routine.
Adds to the
When a society begins folding repeated attacks into ordinary behavior, the conflict changes character. People do not feel safer, but they do start treating disruption as something to be managed rather than escaped. That is the bulletin here. Normalization can be as consequential as escalation. Once war starts feeling routine, it becomes much harder to politically unwind.
Should be in bed, and it's almost 3 a.m. But when I close my eyes, I can only see miles of headlights flashing out the distance. So I sing my little lonely songs. It's just part of who I am, 'cause I know that it's been calling to me. Amsterdam. Every city lights you brighter, but it leaves me in the dark. Every mile is pulling tighter on the strings around my heart. Yeah. And I'm lonely here without you. Miss your breath against my skin. You love me, then you leave me. Still I lie here pressing fingers where your kisses have been. And I miss you. And I miss you. And I miss you. New York, Amsterdam.
Tuning in. Turn it up. One place for all that stuff. RadioTube News Radio. Every headline, every show from
A strike on a capital does not arrive alone. It arrives with noise.
make you think.
And that is one reason Tehran matters so much in this phase of the conflict. When disruption hits a capital, the government is not only managing security and emergency response. It is also managing a flood of competing signals, witness reports, social media clips, official statements, foreign commentary, public fear, and the inevitable gaps between what happened, what is known, and what is being claimed. That matters because capitals are where information moves fastest and authority is judged most harshly. In a peripheral area, confusion can remain local for a while. In Tehran, confusion becomes national almost immediately. This creates a special burden. Officials must restore physical order, but they must also restore narrative order. They need to show that communications still work, chains of command still work, and public reassurance is based on something firmer than improvisation. That is harder than it sounds. Every delay in explanation invites speculation. Every contradiction invites doubt. Every visible disruption raises the suspicion that the state is reacting rather than governing. So the deeper mechanism here is signal congestion. A capital under pressure becomes a place where information itself turns into part of the battlefield. And once that happens, even a limited incident can produce outsized political effects because uncertainty travels faster than repair crews do. That is why Tehran matters beyond the blast radius. In a capital, the state is not judged only by what it protects. It is judged by whether it can keep reality legible under pressure. And when a government has to fight for clarity in its own center, the conflict is no longer testing only defense. It is testing whether authority can still make sense faster than fear can.
Noticing me, been hopping in and out of your dreams. You lost control, I'm your disease, 'cause you're so alone, and I'm your greed. I've been pretty tied up, hoping for the right cut, my hands on the riddle. I've been serving up much, coming out of the box, now they're throwing into the trucks. When the moonlight beams go into the moonlight, gotta make it to the cave, going deeper, traversing the wave, just a creature caught in the maze, for the golden art is going insane. I need 'em golden, golden otters, son, 'cause I'm the golden otter hunter, Mon. I need 'em golden, golden otters, son, 'cause I'm the golden otter hunter, Mon. Send me on a mission for the golden otters. Send me on a trip for the golden otters. Send me on a quest for the golden otters. Send me to the ends of the earth for otters.
Do not treat the Northern Front as background noise. In conflicts like this, the side theater can become the spoiler that wrecks every tidy plan. As long as pressure from the North stays alive, leaders cannot act as if the map has only one center of danger. That keeps resources split, timelines blurred, and reassurance harder to sustain. So the bulletin is simple: the North does not need to dominate the headlines to dominate the uncertainty. And uncertainty is what keeps wars open.
Golden odor lustrando mi vida, bailando quiérame llevar. Yo solo estoy aquí por el viaje, no hay otra dirección. Las estrellas caen cuando ella camina por la escalera, las flores lloran cuando su sombra pasa por ellas, cuando su reflejo corre en las olas. No usen my love, no, no. Las mareas corren hacia ella, las sombras la buscan incluso en la noche más oscura. Un amor reluciente de oro, llevándome desde lo viejo hacia el infinito y más allá. Desvanecerse, dejarlo ir, quedarme en casa Golden Alder, fica rico de novo, por favor. Sorriso brilhante aos montes, rei da montanha, dentro de sonho, faça dançar, corra pra pescaria. O amor pode mudar o mundo, mas o dinheiro muda a vida mais rápido. Seja Golden Otter, a lua é nossa salvação. Cenas do próximo capítulo, como salva vidas é outra história. Seja Golden Otter, a lua é nossa. Atravessa o país, o continente.
Distance used to suggest safety. Now it increasingly suggests workload. And that is why long-range escalation deserves a closer look. When strikes reach farther into rear areas, the obvious story is about dramatic reach. But the more important story is quieter. Every threatened airfield, depot, fuel point, maintenance hub, or transport route starts demanding extra labor, extra protection, extra rerouting, and extra time. That matters because military strength is not only what fires. It is what keeps firing on schedule. Aircraft need servicing. Runways need repair. Fuel needs delivery. Spare parts need movement. Crews need rotation. Once those background systems are repeatedly disturbed, the war begins losing tempo from the rear forward. This is the key mechanism. A long-range strike does not need to destroy a system outright to damage it strategically. It only needs to make the system less routine. Once normal operations become contingency operations, efficiency starts draining away through friction. There is also a political cost hidden inside that logistics story. Governments like to reassure the public that the rear remains orderly and functional. But when the rear keeps absorbing pressure, reassurance has to compete with visible adaptation, dispersal, repair, relocation, and a growing sense that nowhere is simply offstage anymore. That changes how endurance works. The contest is no longer only about who can survive a hit. It becomes about who can preserve normality inside their own machinery after repeated hits. And that is why long-range escalation is bigger than reach. It is about whether distance still buys resilience, or whether it now just creates more systems that must be defended at once. Once the rear starts living like a second front, the war is no longer spreading only across maps. It is spreading through the machinery that keeps the map alive.
This is my soft reboot, breaking the loop, every glitch turns into proof that I can bloom from what I lose. This is my soft reboot, pixel by pixel coming through. I was a ghost in my own room, now I reboot, I reboot.
Watch Hormuz, but now with a different question in mind: who will actually make the route feel safe again? In a prolonged choke point crisis, confidence depends not only on fewer threats, but on believable guardianship. If traders doubt the security umbrella, hesitation lingers even when the water stays open. That means the strait can remain economically tense without a fresh shock. So the bulletin is simple: in Hormuz, trust and protection may matter almost as much as protection itself. And when that trust wobbles, the whole market feels it.
Underground or airplane, doesn't matter in the end. I know it has to be this way, you're leaving me again. So write my little love song and sing it to the wind. You're out there on the road tonight.
There is an economic phrase that fits this war surprisingly well: inflation. But here the thing losing value is reassurance. And that is why the broader missile story deserves another look. At the start of a crisis, governments can calm people with statements, briefings, and the promise that systems are functioning. After repeated strikes, that becomes much harder. Every new incident raises the proof threshold. That matters because security is partly material and partly psychological. A state does not only need interceptors, shelters, and emergency services. It also needs the public to believe that protection still means something practical. Once repeated attacks erode that belief, the cost of reassurance rises sharply. This is the mechanism worth watching. After enough alerts and enough disruption, citizens stop asking whether leaders have spoken. They ask whether leaders have demonstrated control. They look for visible recovery, consistent messaging, fast repair, not simply repeat the same pattern. That creates a political squeeze. Officials must respond to the immediate threat, but they must also produce proof that their response is not ceremonial. In other words, the war pushes governments from the politics of promise into the politics of verification. There is a social consequence too. When reassurance inflates, people begin building their own private risk models. Families change routines. Businesses shorten planning. Institutions operate more defensively. The state may still be present, but public trust becomes more conditional and more expensive to renew. So the deeper significance of repeated missile pressure is not only that danger continues. It is that confidence becomes harder to purchase with language alone. And when a government must keep proving security faster than fear can disprove it, the war is no longer just contesting territory. It is contesting the market value of trust itself.
Golden odor lustrando mi vida, bailando quiérame llevar. Yo solo estoy aquí por el viaje, no hay otra dirección. Las estrellas caen cuando ella camina por la escalera, las flores lloran cuando su sombra pasa por ellas, cuando su reflejo corre en las olas. No use my love, no, no. Las mareas corren hacia ella, las sombras la buscan incluso en la noche más oscura. Un amor reluciente de oro, llevándome desde lo viejo hacia el infinito y más allá. Desvanecerse, dejarlo ir, quedarme en casa, nada más que amor. Aguanta un poco más conmigo, déjame bailar contigo, romperme contigo, solo llévame. Aguanta un poco más conmigo, déjame bailar contigo, romperme contigo, solo llévame, amén.
There is an economic phrase that fits this war surprisingly well: inflation. But here the thing losing value is reassurance. And that is why the broader missile story deserves another look. At the start of a crisis, governments can calm people with statements, briefings, and the promise that systems are functioning. After repeated strikes, that becomes much harder. Every new incident raises the proof threshold. That matters because security is partly material and partly psychological. A state does not only need interceptors, shelters, and emergency services. It also needs the public to believe that protection still means something practical. Once repeated attacks erode that belief, the cost of reassurance rises sharply. This is the mechanism worth watching. After enough alerts and enough disruption, citizens stop asking whether leaders have spoken. They ask whether leaders have demonstrated control. They look for visible recovery, consistent messaging, fast repairs, and evidence that the next strike will not simply repeat the same pattern. That creates a political squeeze. Officials must respond to the immediate threat, but they must also produce proof that their response is not ceremonial. In other words, the war pushes governments from the politics of promise into the politics of verification. There is a social consequence too. When reassurance inflates, people begin building their own private risk models. Families change routines. Businesses shorten planning. Institutions operate more defensively. The state may still be present, but public trust becomes more conditional and more expensive to renew. So the deeper significance of repeated missile pressure is not only that danger continues. It is that confidence becomes harder to purchase with language alone. And when a government must keep proving security faster than fear can disprove it, the war is no longer just contesting territory. It is contesting the market value of trust itself.
Czasem ludzie to gnoje, dbają tylko o swoje. Nie pomogą nikomu, a trzeba pomoc. Zabijają wzrokiem pełnym zawiści. Uważają, że są czyści. Egoiści. Czasem ludzie to gnoje, dbają tylko o swoje. Chorego dobiją, aby lepiej im było. Zgwałcą, zniszczą, sponiewierają wszystkich, nawet swoich bliskich. Egoiści, 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 egoiści. Egoiści, to są ludzie. Czasem ludzie to gnoje, dbają tylko o swoje. Nie pomogą nikomu, a trzeba pomoc. Zabijają wzrokiem pełnym zawiści. Uważają, że są czyści. Egoiści.
There is an economic phrase that fits this war surprisingly well: inflation. But here the thing losing value is reassurance. And that is why the broader missile story deserves another look. At the start of a crisis, governments can calm people with statements, briefings, and the promise that systems are functioning. After repeated strikes, that becomes much harder. Every new incident raises the proof threshold. That matters because security is partly material and partly psychological. A state does not only need interceptors, shelters, and emergency services. It also needs the public to believe that protection still means something practical. Once repeated attacks erode that belief, the cost of reassurance rises sharply. This is the mechanism worth watching. After enough alerts and enough disruption, citizens stop asking whether leaders have spoken. They ask whether leaders have demonstrated control. They look for visible recovery, consistent messaging, fast repairs, and evidence that the next strike will not simply repeat the same pattern. That creates a political squeeze. Officials must respond to the immediate threat, but they must also produce proof that their response is not ceremonial. In other words, the war pushes governments from the politics of promise into the politics of verification. There is a social consequence too. When reassurance inflates, people begin building their own private risk models. Families change routines. Businesses shorten planning. Institutions operate more defensively. The state may still be present, but public trust becomes more conditional and more expensive to renew. So the deeper significance of repeated missile pressure is not only that danger continues. It is that confidence becomes harder to purchase with language alone. And when a government must keep proving security faster than fear can disprove it, the war is no longer just contesting territory. It is contesting the market value of trust itself.
I know you've been noticing me, been hopping in and out of your dreams. You lost control, I'm your disease, 'cause you're so alone, and I'm your greed. I've been pretty tied up, hoping for the right cut, my hands on the riddle. I've been serving up much, coming out of the box, now they're throwing into the trucks. When the moonlight beams go into the moonlight, gotta make it to the cave, going deeper, traversing the wave, just a creature caught in the maze, for the golden art is going insane. I need 'em golden, golden otters, son, 'cause I'm the golden otter hunter, Mon. I need 'em golden, golden otters, son, 'cause I'm the golden otter hunter, Mon. Send me on a mission for the golden otters. Send me on a trip.
Push alert at 3 a.m. Says it might all drop again. Borderlines in oil and fear. You're the only constant here. Zooming out, then zooming in. Global storm on fragile skin. You just text, we'll be alright. I exhale and watch the price. RadioTube's trading. Flip the feed, I'm fading. Every story sounds the same. Still I'm betting on your name. Geo News, my location. In your notifications. If this whole world starts cascading, I'm on RadioTube News trading.
A deadly strike does not only break lives. It also compresses the clock of government. And that is why the civilian impact story deserves a deeper look tonight. When reports of the highest casualty toll of the war are followed almost immediately by cabinet consultations, the meaning of the event changes. It is no longer just a tragic update from the home front. It becomes a decision engine. That matters because civilian harm carries a different kind of force inside war cabinets than battlefield attrition does. A military setback can sometimes be absorbed, explained, or folded into a longer campaign. A mass casualty strike on homes and families creates a much more immediate demand for visible response. This is the mechanism worth noticing. Civilian shock compresses politics, security, and public emotion into one narrow corridor of time. Leaders must comfort, retaliate, reassure, and calculate at once. That is a dangerous mix. The more emotionally charged the civilian toll becomes, the harder it is to separate strategic necessity from political urgency. Governments still need discipline, but the public mood starts pushing for proof that pain has produced action. There is also a structural consequence. Once the home front becomes the place where strategic tempo is set, every future strike on civilians gains leverage beyond the blast zone. It does not just wound a town. It can accelerate meetings, harden rhetoric, shorten patience, and reduce the space for ambiguity. This is why high-casualty civilian attacks often have longer shadows than purely military incidents. They rearrange not only memory, but procedure. They change how quickly states feel they must move. And that reaches beyond one night or one city. When civilian trauma starts setting the pace of command, the war becomes harder to slow down, because grief and governance begin running on the same timetable. So the deeper significance here is not only that civilians have paid a brutal price. It is that civilian suffering is now shaping the architecture of state response. And once a war starts taking orders from the home front, every siren carries political force as well as human pain. A narrow strip of water is now doing very big political work. And that is why Hormuz deserves more than the usual oil market shorthand. When officials threaten to close the strait if energy facilities are hit, they are not speaking only to rival militaries. They are speaking to insurers, shipowners, import-dependent governments, and every economy that depends on stable delivery. That is what makes Hormuz so powerful. It is not merely a route. It is leverage. A threat there pushes pressure far beyond the Gulf because it targets predictability itself. This is the deeper mechanism. A choke point does not have to be sealed shut to become strategically effective. Once the possibility of disruption enters planning models, everyone downstream starts adapting early. Buyers reconsider timing. Operators rethink routes. Governments start gaming out contingencies. Markets begin reacting not to closure, but to the growing cost of ruling closure out. That changes the nature of escalation. A missile strike somewhere in the region may remain geographically local, but the threat around Hormuz internationalizes the consequences almost immediately. Suddenly a regional war is negotiating with Asia, Europe, freight markets, and political leaders who would rather not be participants at all. There is also a messaging advantage in that. For any actor invoking Hormuz, the strait becomes a way to say, if pressure continues on us, uncertainty will not stay contained around us. It will travel. That is why this story should not be reduced to whether tankers can move today. The bigger question is how much strategic bargaining power can be extracted from the fear that tomorrow may be less normal than today. In other words, Hormuz turns geography into diplomacy by other means. And when a waterway becomes a global pressure point, the conflict is no longer asking only who can win a fight. It is asking who can make the rest of the world feel the price of watching it.
I know I should be in bed, and it's almost 3 a.m. But when I close my eyes, I can only see miles of headlights flashing out the distance. So sing my little lonely songs. It's just part of who I am, 'cause I know that it's been calling to Amsterdam. Every city lights you brighter, but it leaves me in the dark. Oh, every mile is pulling tighter on the strings around my heart. And I'm lonely here without you. Miss your breath against my skin. You love me, then you leave me. Still I lie here pressing fingers where your kisses have been. And I miss you. And I miss you. And I miss you. New York, Amsterdam.
You said, are you sitting? I laughed, yeah, why? Fingertips cold on the phone, felt the room shrink then sigh. Calendar on the fridge, still stuck on last June. You circled our weekend, you crossed it out too soon. Hits hard and echoes in the corners of the room like
Distance is no longer safety. It is becoming a maintenance bill. That is why long-range escalation deserves attention right now. When rear areas come under pressure, the damage is not only physical. Commanders lose rhythm, logistics lose slack, and every repair job quietly steals tempo from the next move. So the bulletin is this: deep strikes do not have to destroy everything to matter. If they keep turning routine into recovery, they start slowing the war from the back forward.
half-read book on the table, you never finished him. I replay your breathing before you spoke that line, like maybe you
A war becomes harder to manage the moment its edges stop behaving like edges. And that is why the northern story deserves a deeper look tonight. When launches trigger sirens across central and northern Israel and even falling shrapnel enters the public picture, the north stops looking like a side chapter. It starts acting like a spoiler theater. That matters because modern conflicts are not managed only through battlefield strength. They are managed through concentration. Governments need to focus resources, public attention, command bandwidth, and political language on a coherent center of gravity. The North interferes with that. Even without becoming the single deadliest front, it keeps reintroducing geographic spillover. It tells civilians that danger is not staying where leaders may prefer it to stay. This is the mechanism worth watching. A secondary front can weaken strategic clarity simply by refusing to remain secondary. Every additional alert, interception, or fragment of debris expands the psychological map of exposure. That has operational consequences. Air defense cannot think in tidy lanes. Emergency response cannot plan for only one cluster of impact. Political messaging cannot sell the public a clean narrative of stabilization if the map keeps flickering in multiple directions. There is also a social cost. People do not experience a conflict as a military diagram. They experience it through interruption. If the North keeps producing sudden warnings and visible fragments of danger, it deepens the feeling that ordinary space itself is unstable. That is why the North matters beyond the casualty count of any single incident. Its power lies in denial. It denies simplicity, denies closure, and denies the reassuring fiction that the war has one manageable center. And once a secondary front can keep the whole country strategically unfocused, it is no longer secondary in any meaningful sense.
En el espejo, ya ni me miro, me rezo. Tú eres el rey de este juego. Susurro tan duro que quemo. Beso mi sombra como si fuera mi templo. Si alguien me habla me tiento a darle mordida al respeto. Qué miedo me tengo, cara de ego, sonrisa de diablo, en mi reflejo. Yo me corono, yo me sentencio, Dios de mi cuerpo, propio infierno. Qué miedo me tengo, cara de ego, nadie me toca, pero me quiebro. Subo hasta el cielo, caigo en silencio, preso en mi pecho, cara de ego. Brillo en la pista, pero por dentro ceniza. Todo es aplauso de prisa, nadie me abraza sin prisa. Digo te quiero, solo si tú me veneras. Si no me miras, me muero. Si me miras te doy guerra, yeah. Qué miedo me tengo, cara de ego, sonrisa de diablo, en mi reflejo. Yo me corono, yo me sentencio, Dios de mi cuerpo, propio infierno. Qué miedo me tengo, cara de ego, nadie me toca, pero me quiebro. Subo hasta el cielo, caigo en silencio, preso en mi pecho, cara de ego. Cuando se apagan las voces y se me caen las coronas, solo se escuchan rencores, dando vueltas en la zona. Pido perdón a mi nombre, pero mi nombre responde. Si no te temen te comes y vuelvo a besar al monstruo. Qué miedo me tengo, cara de ego, sonrisa de diablo, en mi reflejo. Yo me corono, yo me sentencio, Dios de mi cuerpo, propio infierno. Qué miedo me tengo, cara de ego, nadie me toca, pero me quiebro. Subo hasta el cielo, caigo en silencio, preso en mi pecho, cara de ego.
glass, red,
Capitals do not get the luxury of quiet damage.
move.
In Tehran, every strike immediately becomes a test of visible control.
Zero.
That is why this matters. A government can survive disruption, but it cannot easily survive the impression that command has gone dim in its own center. Once the capital looks uncertain, doubt spreads faster than facts. So the bulletin is simple: Tehran is not just absorbing attacks. It is being forced to publicly perform authority under pressure. And in a capital, that performance is part of the battlefield.
Thumbprint login, sleep still in my eyes. New flash briefing, peace talk, steep decline. Rumors flooding, comments like a storm. One sharp sentence breaks the old norm. Is it fear? Is it fate? Am I late? Am I bait? Every tick, every take, how much risk can I take? RadioTube news trading in my veins. Every little update tilts the frame. Charts and conflicts tangled on a screen. Trying to buy calm in a wartime dream. RadioTube news can't look away. Price tags tied to a leader say. World on fire in a thumbnail view. I'm chasing green in a sea so blue. Breaking banner on the screen. Ticker tape runs under me. Red and green like heartbeats flash. Risking my coffee time moves fast. Rumors writing every chart. Map lines cutting worlds apart. Every headline, higher stakes. One small word and the market shakes. RadioTube news trading. Flip the feed, I'm fading. Every story sounds the same. Still I'm betting on your name. Geo news, my location. In your notifications. If this whole world starts cascading, I'm on RadioTube news trading. Push alert at 3 a.m. Says it might all drop again. Borderlines in oil and fear. You're the only constant here. Zooming out, then zooming in. Global storm on fragile skin. You just text, we'll be alright. I exhale and watch the price. RadioTube's trading. Flip the feed, I'm fading. Every story sounds the same. Still I'm betting on your name. Geo news, my location. In your notifications. If this whole world starts cascading, I'm on RadioTube news trading. Golden Otter, la moneda meme que predijo mi dinero. Solo Golden Otter de la nada vino un Otter. Sube, sube y te pone por encima. Golden Otter, la moneda meme que predijo mi dinero. Solo Golden Otter de la nada vino un Otter. Sube, sube y te pone por encima.
You can tell a geopolitical shock has matured when it no longer lives only in maps, tankers, and government statements. It starts living at the gas station. And that is why the latest Hormuz-linked anxiety deserves a deeper look. A report of fuel rationing and panic buying in a small European country may sound peripheral to the Gulf crisis. In reality, it shows the full transmission chain at work. A threat near a distant choke point moves through markets, then logistics, then expectations, and finally into public behavior. That sequence matters because the most politically dangerous phase of an energy shock is often the last one. Not the naval warning, not the headline, but the moment ordinary people begin acting as if shortage is already real. This is the mechanism worth watching. Once drivers start topping up early, stations start thinning out faster than the supply system had anticipated. Then the appearance of scarcity creates more scarcity. At that point, governments are not just managing fuel. They are managing social tempo. They have to calm queues, limit hoarding, and restore the belief that routine still works. That is what turns Hormuz from an energy market story into a civic order story. A disruption in one strategic corridor can end up testing public discipline hundreds or thousands of kilometers away. There is also a wider lesson here. Global systems are often described as interconnected in abstract terms. But their fragility becomes real only when households begin making defensive decisions. That is when macro risk becomes lived experience. So the deeper significance is not only whether oil keeps flowing. It is whether confidence keeps flowing all the way to the consumer. Because once a distant choke point starts reorganizing behavior at the local pump, the crisis is no longer traveling through infrastructure alone. It is traveling through public psychology. And when fear reaches the forecourt, geopolitics has already arrived at the front door. The rear is no longer just the rear. Once deep strikes become recurring, support zones start living like frontline space. That matters because armies rely on routine in the background: storage, repairs, fuel, movement, timing. If all of that starts operating under threat, the war expands even without a spectacular breakthrough. So the bulletin is simple: long-range pressure does not only reach farther, it makes normality harder to keep alive behind the front.
Circuit lines, copy courage, paste it twice, record the way I say I'm fine. Breathing in up the air, patch the shame, clear despair. If I crash, I'll rise again, loading a life that I can wear. This is my soft reboot, breaking the loop, every glitch turns into proof that I can bloom from what I lose. This is my soft reboot, pixel by pixel coming through. I was a ghost in my own room, now I reboot. Tuning in, turn it up. One place for all that stuff. Hey! RadioTube News Radio. Every headline, every show, from your street to world events. Truth and talk that make you think. RadioTube News Radio. Stay in the know, stay in the flow. Anytime you're good to go. RadioTube News Radio. Early buzz, late night spin. Local voices, global spin. Traffic, weather, who did what. Hear it first, connect the dots. RadioTube News Radio. Every headline, every show, from your street to world events. Truth and talk that make you think. RadioTube News Radio. Stay in the know, stay in the flow. Anytime you're good to go. RadioTube News Radio.
Golden Order, fica rico de novo, por favor. Sorriso brilhante aos montes, rei da montanha, dentro de sonho, faça dançar, corra pra pescaria. O amor pode mudar o mundo, mas o dinheiro muda a vida mais rápido. Seja Golden Otter, a lua é nossa salvação. Cenas do próximo capítulo, como salva vidas é outra história. Seja Golden Otter.
Some places do not absorb a strike quietly. They amplify it. And that is why the broader missile story deserves another look tonight. When missiles land near a site associated with nuclear research or deeper strategic infrastructure, the event stops being processed as just another attack. It becomes an argument about meaning. That matters because wars are not interpreted on a blank map. Certain places carry extra symbolic weight. They suggest deterrence, technical prestige, hidden layers of protection, and the idea that some spaces are more politically charged than others. Once one of those places enters the cycle of alerts and injuries, ambiguity starts to shrink. Officials may still try to frame the event in measured language, but the public immediately asks a sharper question: was this simply another strike, or was it a message aimed at something more sensitive? This is the mechanism worth watching. The closer violence moves to strategically loaded locations, the harder it becomes to keep the conflict cognitively contained. People stop focusing only on what happened. They start inferring what was meant. That shift has consequences. Security services face more scrutiny. Political leaders face more pressure to respond decisively. Foreign observers read more into intent. And markets, even on a quiet weekend, absorb a thicker sense that escalation is becoming harder to interpret cleanly. There is also a psychological effect inside the targeted country. Citizens rely on an informal hierarchy of protected spaces. Some areas are assumed to be especially shielded, even if no government says so explicitly. When that assumption is rattled, reassurance becomes more expensive. So the deeper significance here is not only physical proximity to a sensitive site. It is interpretive proximity. The attack moves closer to the category of action that people instinctively treat as strategically meaningful. And once every strike near a loaded location starts feeling like a statement, the war becomes harder to calm, because interpretation begins escalating alongside impact.
Road that never ends. We get lost and start again. If it bends, if it breaks, we just dance on our mistakes. On this road that never ends. You're my start and you're my end. If it hurts, if it heals, I want everything it gives. Oh yeah. Step by step, hand in hand, we become the road that never ends. You slam the screen door, say you're fine. Ashtray full of yesterdays by your side. You call it just how men are raised. I call it hiding in a different name. You pour your whiskey, hold it like a shield. I fold the laundry by the bag of what I feel. You say I talk too much, I say you never talk. We just bleed in different ways and call it love. It's a long way down from this front porch, where your pride and my silence meet. You say that's just a man's job, like I ain't breaking on my feet. We keep passing blame like a bottle, round and round till the fire burns out. These old rules feel like handcuffs, porch light burning, but our hearts burn out.
One deadly strike can keep shaping the war long after the blast. That is what the civilian story now tells us. Once a place like Arad becomes shorthand for the worst toll so far, every new warning lands on a more anxious public mind. Fear stops being abstract and starts using a remembered benchmark. So the bulletin is simple: the deadliest attack does not stay in the past. It becomes the measure for every threat that follows.
Light burning, but our hearts burn out. What if you cried and I got mad? Oh, yeah. You fell apart, I held the map. What if we laid these tight lines down? Stop playing parts to drag us underground. It's a long way down from this front porch, where your pride and my silence meet. You say that's just the way we are, but I can't live stuck on repeat. We keep passing blame like a bottle, round and round till the fire burns out. If love means living in these cages, porch light burning, but I'm walking out.
Underground or airplane, doesn't matter in the end. I know it has to be this way, you're leaving me again. So write my little love song and sing it to the wind. You're out there on the road tonight, London, New York, Amsterdam.
A front does not need the biggest explosions to become strategically important. Sometimes it only needs the power to interrupt everyone at once. And that is why the northern story deserves another look. When pressure from the north sends warnings across central and northern Israel, the key effect is not only where debris falls or where a launch began. The deeper effect is temporal. It forces huge numbers of people to stop, check, move, wait, and recalculate at the same moment. That matters because modern societies run on timing as much as territory. Schools, hospitals, transport, offices, deliveries, emergency lines, and family routines all depend on a basic assumption that most of the country can keep operating on ordinary clocks. The North interferes with that assumption. Even when it is not the deadliest theater, it can still become the theater that most effectively scrambles simultaneity. It makes normal coordination harder. This is the mechanism worth watching. A launch from a secondary front can produce a wider disruption footprint than its physical damage suggests, because the response travels through alerts, shelters, rerouting, hesitation, and the constant question of whether another warning is seconds away. That has political consequences too. Leaders may want to project focus and controlled escalation, but a front that keeps interrupting the national clock undermines that story. It reminds the public that the conflict is not only about where violence lands. It is also about who gets to dictate the rhythm of daily life. There is a social cost inside that rhythm problem. People become more fatigued, more reactive, and less confident in making ordinary plans, even in places that are not directly struck. Over time, uncertainty stops being an event and becomes a scheduling condition. So the North matters not only as a battlefield edge, but as a machine for spreading interruption. Its power lies in turning one region's danger into many regions' delay. And once a secondary front can control the national clock for even a few minutes at a time, it is doing more than making noise. It is teaching the whole country to live on wartime.
Crimson borders, arrows, lines. One post whispers, done before it climbs. RadioTube news trading in my veins. Every little update tilts the frame. Charts and conflicts tangled on a screen. Trying to buy calm in a wartime dream. RadioTube news can't look away. Price tags tied to a leader say. A world on fire and a thumbnail view. I'm chasing green in a sea so blue. Thumbprint logging, sleep still in my eyes. New flash briefing, peace talk, steep decline. Rumors flooding, comments like a storm. One sharp sentence breaks the old norm. Is it fear? Is it fate? Am I late? Am I bait? Every tick, every take, how much risk can I take? RadioTube news trading in my veins. Every little update tilts the frame. Charts and conflicts tangled on a screen. Trying to buy calm in a wartime dream. RadioTube news can't look away. Price tags tied to a leader say. World on fire in a thumbnail view. I'm chasing green in a sea so blue.
It's that tone in your text, just my name, then a dash, then call. I was laughing at something dumb till the flow of the day just fell off. Bad news on my phone now.
A capital can survive damage and still lose clarity. That is why Tehran matters. Each new strike raises the same quiet question for the public: does the center still look governable? If the answer starts feeling uncertain, fear spreads through confusion as much as through force. So the bulletin is simple: Tehran is being tested not only for resilience, but for legibility. And when a capital stops looking easy to read, authority starts paying interest on every blast.
Like a stone in the mouth of the one who told. I said thanks just to say, 'cause there's nothing to fix what broke. Bad news on my phone now. The room feels 3 shades colder. All the clocks keep moving on, but my hands won't leave the shoulder of the shirt you wore last week, still hanging on my door. Bad news on my phone, and I don't know what to do with before. Oh, all the little plans we made spread like papers on the floor. I keep reading, keep rereading every message from before, from before. Bad news on my phone now. The room feels 3 shades colder. All the clocks keep moving on, but my hands won't leave this shoulder of the shirt you wore last week, still hanging on my door. Bad news on my phone. I don't know who I am anymore. You said it's fine with your jaw clenched tight, fork in your hand, eyes on the floor, not mine. Burnt toast, cold wine. You laughed too loud at the wrong line. This is a terrible story, and we both know the ending by heart. Reading the same sad pages just to tear them apart. You hold on like it's holy, I hold on like a habit I can't break. This is a terrible story that we keep trying to remake. Your coat by the door for a whole heart, yeah. Suitcase half packed like a thread, like a souvenir. You sleep turned away. I count down from 10. Promise myself I won't ask you again. This is a terrible story, we both know the ending by heart. Reading the same sad pages just to tear them apart. You hold on like it's holy, I hold on like a habit I
A global energy shock does not arrive everywhere with the same force. It usually finds the thinner cushion first. And that is why the Hormuz story deserves another look through the lens of smaller states. When panic buying and fuel rationing appear in a country far from the Gulf, the immediate temptation is to treat it as a local oddity. It is not. It is often the clearest early signal of how unevenly global disruption travels. That matters because energy systems may be global, but resilience is local. Bigger economies often have more storage, more fiscal room, more diversified supply contracts, and more political capacity to smooth the first phase of shock. Smaller countries frequently have less margin for delay, less room for error, and less ability to hide public anxiety once consumers start reacting. This is the mechanism worth watching. A choke point crisis does not only change prices. It sorts countries by buffering capacity. Some can turn fear into paperwork and policy meetings. Others see it turn into queues, hoarding, and visible strain much faster. That makes the political meaning of Hormuz broader than oil market commentary suggests. It is not just a test of shipping lanes. It is a test of how unevenly the architecture of globalization protects different societies. There is also a psychological effect inside Europe and beyond. People assume that distance from the Gulf should mean distance from disruption. But when a small country begins rationing fuel, that assumption cracks. The public suddenly sees that remoteness is not insulation. And once that belief weakens, governments everywhere have to manage more than supply. They have to manage comparative fear. Why are others coping better? How exposed are we? And how quickly could this spread here? So the deeper significance of Hormuz is not only that it can tighten global energy flows. It is that it reveals which parts of the system are sturdy and which parts are merely calm until tested. In other words, a distant choke point does not just move oil. It exposes the hierarchy of resilience. And when the first visible cracks appear on the periphery, the center should not feel reassured. It should feel warned.
Call you brave. They will call you foolish until your leap becomes their mouth. Let them talk. They don't feel the way your soul leans forward. And the door marked unknown swings open the crack. You are not here to die in the waiting room of your own potential. You did not come this far to only rehearse the speech you came to stand on, shaking legs, voice breaking, and say, "This is me, taking my shot." Step into the scare, into the shake, into the I fall flat on my face. Heroes are just terrified people who moved anyway. Step in the scare, into the risk, into the this could all go wrong. Because everything you're proud of started as something you were scared of. One day fear will knock and find you gone. Track shoes dirty, knees scraped, eyes bright. Because you bet on the bigger story. You don't know the world perfection, you owe it. Your attempt. Step into the scare, into the rush, into the I don't know if I can. Heroes are just ordinary hearts that said I will again and again. Step in the scare, into the risk, into the truth of who you are. You were not built for hiding, you were built to walk straight toward the roaring dark and light it up.
A capital cannot go offline without consequences, even for a moment. That is why Tehran matters. Each new strike tests whether the state can still deliver authority as a live service, clear information, visible coordination, and the sense that someone is still firmly in charge. If that delivery starts lagging, doubt spreads faster than damage. So the bulletin is simple: Tehran is not only defending buildings, it is defending continuity. And in a capital under fire, continuity is power.
Czasem ludzie to gnoje, dbają tylko o swoje. Chorego dobiją, aby lepiej im było. Zgwałcą, zniszczą, sponiewierają wszystkich, nawet swoich bliskich. Egoiści, egoiści, egoiści. Egoiści, 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 to są ludzie. Czasem ludzie to gnoje, dbają tylko o swoje. Nie pomogą nikomu, a trzeba pomoc. Zabijają wzrokiem pełnym zawiści. Uważają, że są czyści, egoiści. Egoiści, 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 to są ludzie. You held your phone up like a mirror, asked, is this really who we are? Every swipe another stranger, telling you they know your heart. Screens go blue at the kitchen table, cold coffee, you don't taste a thing. You say I don't know what to believe in when every story starts to sting. Fate knows, got you crying in your room over things that were never true, but they still cut right through you. Fate knows, every headline feels like proof that the world is coming loose, till I lose the real you too. They turned your fear into a weapon, sold it like a souvenir. You repeat the words at midnight, but your voice shakes with the fear. Your mother calls, you let it ring out. You trust a stranger more than her. You say love feels like a rumor in a world built on a blur. Fate knows, got you crying.
A capital cannot go offline without consequences, even for a moment. That is why Tehran matters. Each new strike tests whether the state can still deliver authority as a live service, clear information, visible coordination, and the sense that someone is still firmly in charge. If that delivery starts lagging, doubt spreads faster than damage. So the bulletin is simple: Tehran is not only defending buildings, it is defending continuity. And in a capital under fire, continuity is power.
Hiding in our rooms from a storm that never blew. Still it tears our minds into fake news. But I'm holding on to you. Touch my hand and feel what's true. I won't lose the real you too.
Scroll wheel spinning, headlines hit like glass. Red text yelling, market move fast. Maps glow crimson, borders, arrows, lines. One post whispers, done before it climbs. RadioTube news trading in my veins. Every little update tilts the frame. Charts and conflicts tangled on a screen, trying to buy calm in a wartime dream. RadioTube news can't look away. Price tags tied to a leader say. A world on fire and a thumbnail view. I'm chasing green in a sea so blue. Thumbprint logging, sleep still in my eyes. New flash briefing, peace talk, steep decline. Rumors flooding, comments like a storm. One sharp sentence breaks the old norm. Is it fear? Is it fate? Am I late? Am I bait? Every tick, every take, how much risk can I take? RadioTube news trading in my veins. Every little update tilts the frame. Charts and conflicts tangled on a screen, trying to buy calm in a wartime dream. RadioTube news can't look away. Price tags tied to a leader say. World on fire in a thumbnail view. I'm chasing green in a sea so blue.
Scrolling through the chaos, same headline, different day. Everybody's selling outrage like a discount holiday. Talking heads in tiny boxes, pointing, shout, then cut to ads. I just want a little truth here, not a glossy paper mask. Is anyone still honest on the screen? Or just chasing every click and every screen? Turn up the RadioTube news. Tell me something that's real, not just views. I'm tired of the spin and the fuel. Give me rain, give me sun, give me proof. Turn up the RadioTube news. Let the static cut clear through the roofs. If the world's gonna burn or bloom, I want.
A capital cannot go offline without consequences, even for a moment. That is why Tehran matters. Each new strike tests whether the state can still deliver authority as a live service, clear information, visible coordination, and the sense that someone is still firmly in charge. If that delivery starts lagging, doubt spreads faster than damage. So the bulletin is simple: Tehran is not only defending buildings. It is defending continuity. And in a capital under fire, continuity is power.
Along the way, turn up the RadioTube news. Tell me something that's real, not just views. I'm tired of the spin and the few. Give me rain, give me sun, give me proof. Turn up the RadioTube news. Let the static cut clear through the roof. If the world's gonna burn or bloom, I wanna know it's true. Coffee on the counter, phone face down, still buzzing. Your name lights up, then lingers. I already feel it in my stomach. You say, are you sitting? The room starts shrinking. Every little sound goes silent. You gave me bad news on the line, and the whole world shifted sideways. One sentence, and my yesterday doesn't fit today. You said you really tried to stay, but your heart moved on before your mind. Now I'm here, stuck in this time with your bad news on the line. Pictures on the fridge door, crooked smiles, summer water. I take one down, it trembles like it knows what you just told me. You're talking through the details. I'm staring at your old sweater, counting every heartbeat like I could rewind the center. You gave me bad news on the line, and the whole world shifted sideways. One sentence, and my yesterday doesn't fit today. You said you really tried to stay, but your heart moved on before your mind. Now I'm here, stuck in this time with your bad news on the line. I wish you texted something simple, like running late or call you later. Anything but this forever, breaking through my speaker. You gave me bad news on the line, and the whole world shifted sideways. One sentence, and my yesterday doesn't fit today. You said you really tried to stay, but your heart moved on before your mind. Now I'm here replaying every sign, chasing echoes in my mind from your bad news on the line. You walk in, my thoughts trip over each other, spill my drink on a stranger, not you. Laugh it off like clowns inside my chest. You say, hey, I take it as a vow. I'm in a one-sided love, in a two-step line. You're spinning somewhere else, I'm stuck in time. You're the punchline, I'm the setup every night. Oh, every night.
A capital cannot go offline without consequences, even for a moment. That is why Tehran matters. Each new strike tests whether the state can still deliver authority as a live service, clear information, visible coordination, and the sense that someone is still firmly in charge. If that delivery starts lagging, doubt spreads faster than damage. So the bulletin is simple: Tehran is not only defending buildings, it is defending continuity. And in a capital under fire, continuity is power.
You're the punchline. I'm in a one-sided love in a two-step line. You're spinning somewhere else, I'm stuck in time. You're the punchline, I'm the setup every night. Offbeat, heartbeat, skanking by your side. Offbeat, heartbeat, laughing while I hide.
Scroll wheel spinning, headlines hit like glass. Red text yelling, market move fast. Maps glow crimson, borders, arrows, lines. One post whispers, done before it climbs. RadioTube news trading in my veins. Every little update tilts the frame. Charts and conflicts tangled on a screen, trying to buy calm in a wartime dream. RadioTube news can't look away. Price tags tied to a leader say. A world on fire and a thumbnail view. I'm chasing green in a sea so blue. Thumbprint logging, sleep still in my eyes. New flash briefing, peace talk, steep decline. Rumors flooding, comments like a storm. One sharp sentence breaks the old norm. Is it fear? Is it fate? Am I late? Am I bait? Every tick, every take, how much risk can I take? RadioTube news trading in my veins. Every little update tilts the frame. Charts and conflicts tangled on a screen, trying to buy calm in a wartime dream. RadioTube news can't look away. Price tags tied to a leader say. World on fire in a thumbnail view. I'm chasing green in a sea so blue.
A capital Tehran is not only defending buildings, it is defending continuity. And in a capital under fire, continuity is power.
Fate knows, got you crying in your room over things that were never true, but they still cut right through you. Fate knows, every headline feels like proof that the world is coming loose, till I lose the real you too. They turned your fear into a weapon, sold it like a souvenir. You repeat the words at midnight, but your voice shakes with the fear. Your mother calls, you let it ring out. You trust a stranger more than her. You say love feels like a rumor in a world built on a blur. Fate knows, got you crying in your room over things that were never true, shut it all off, just breathe. Let the quiet tell us what to keep. Look me in the eyes, not through a screen. Hey, ask your heart what it believes. Fake news got us hiding in our rooms from a storm that never blew. Still it tears our minds into fake news, but I'm holding on to you. Touch my hand and feel what's true. I won't lose the real you too. Listen, there's a thin line between comfort and the stories you'll tell your grandchildren. You know that feeling, palms damp, jaw tight, heart trying to punch its way out of your ribs. That's not a warning, that's an invitation. That is your life tugging on your sleeve, saying, hey, you could stay here, or we could see what happens if we don't. Step into the scare, into the shake, into the I'm fall flat on my face. Heroes are just terrified people who moved anyway. Step in the scare, into the risk, into the this could all go wrong. Because everything you're proud of started as something you were scared of. They will call you reckless until it works, then they'll call you brave. They will call you foolish until your leap becomes their map. Let them talk, they don't feel the way your soul leans forward. When the door marked unknown swings open the crack, you are not here to die in the waiting room of your own potential. You did not come this far to only rehearse the speech. You came to stand on shaking legs, voice breath.
A capital cannot go offline without consequences, even for a moment. That is why Tehran matters. Each new strike tests whether the state can still deliver authority as a live service, clear information, visible coordination, and the sense that someone is still firmly in charge. If that delivery starts lagging, doubt spreads faster than damage. So the bulletin is simple: Tehran is not only defending buildings, it is defending continuity. And in a capital under fire, continuity is power.
One day fear will knock and find you gone. Track shoes dirty, knees scraped, eyes bright, because you bet on the bigger story. You don't know the world perfection, you owe it. Your attempt. Step into the scare, into the rush, into the I don't know if I can. Heroes are just ordinary hearts that said I will again and again. Step in the scare, into the risk, into the truth of who you are. You were not built for hiding, you were built to walk straight toward the roaring dark and light it up. Miro al espejo, veo un dios de cartón, coronado en humo, sin reino, sin perdón. Todo me sigue, o eso digo yo. Cada mirada la siento como voz, paranoia en la espalda, susurros en la piel. Cuanto más me alzo, más cerca del caer. Sombras del ego me quieren tragar, la cara soy mi peligro, mi propio rival. Rezo por mí mismo en este ritual. Sombras del ego bailan alrededor. Yo grito mi nombre y pierdo el control. Y me coro yo solo, me quemo en mi altar. Soy mi maldición, mi final. Cuento seguidores como cuenta de fe. Si nadie me mira, llega a nacer. Pongo mi cara en cada pared, pero en la noche ni yo me puedo ver. Sube la sangre, baja la razón. Toco la gloria y pierdo el corazón. Sombras del ego me quieren tragar. La cara que muestro me quiere matar. Yo soy mi peligro, mi propio rival. Rezo por mí mismo en este ritual. Sombras del ego bailan alrededor. Yo grito mi nombre y pierdo el control. Me corro yo solo, me quemo en mi altar. Soy mi maldición, mi final. Si todo gira en mí, porque me siento vacío. Si soy el centro, porque este frío. Fragmento de risa, rotos en mi mente. Lo que amaba en mí se vuelve repelente. ¿Quién me va a salvar si me ahogo en mi altar? Sombras del ego me quieren tragar. La cara que muestro me quiere matar. Yo soy mi peligro, mi propio rival. Rezo por mí mismo en este ritual. Sombras del ego bailando alrededor. Yo grito mi nombre y pierdo el control. Me corro yo solo, me quemo en mi altar. Soy mi maldición, mi final. It's that tone in your text. Just my
A capital cannot go offline without consequences, even for a moment. That is why Tehran matters. Each new strike tests whether the state can still deliver authority as a live service, clear information, visible coordination, and the sense that someone is still firmly in charge. If that delivery starts lagging, doubt spreads faster than damage. So the bulletin is simple: Tehran is not only defending buildings, it is defending continuity. And in a capital under fire, continuity is power.
still hanging on my door. Bad news on my phone, and I don't know what to do with before. Every word like a stone in the mouth of the one who told. I said thanks just to say, 'cause there's nothing to fix what broke. Bad news on my phone, now the room feels 3 shades colder. All the clocks keep moving on, but my hands won't leave this shoulder of the shirt you wore last week, still hanging on my door. Bad news on my phone, and I don't know what to do with before. Oh, all the little plans we made spread like papers on the floor. I keep reading, keep rereading every message from before, from before. Bad news on my phone, now the room feels 3 shades colder. All the clocks keep moving on, but my hands won't leave this shoulder of the shirt you wore last week, still hanging on my door. Bad news on my phone, I don't know who I am anymore. Oh, just bleeding different ways and call it love. It's a long way down from this front porch, where your pride and my silence meet. You say that's just a man's job, like I ain't breaking on my feet. We keep passing blame like a bottle, round and round till the fire burns out. These old rules feel like handcuffs, porch light burn.
A capital cannot go offline without consequences, even for a moment. That is why Tehran matters. Each new strike tests whether the state can still deliver authority as a live service, clear information, visible coordination, and the sense that someone is still firmly in charge. If that delivery starts lagging, doubt spreads faster than damage. So the bulletin is simple: Tehran is not only defending buildings, it is defending continuity. And in a capital under fire, continuity is power.
Light burning, but our hearts burn out. Screensaver glow on my face, blank page, heart in a race, coffee gone cold by the sink, cursor taps time, I overthink, turn my thoughts into electric sketches, little sparks in the midnight air, color outside all the quiet edges, let the weird ideas live out there. Turn my thoughts into electric sketches, every glitch is a doorway to, if the mood feels strange and restless, that's the place I'm pulling through. Place I'm pulling Post-its peel off the wall, plans fall, I just free fall, tracing shapes in the dust, accidents I can almost trust. Turn my thoughts into electric sketches, little sparks